every change begins with a question. For me, it was the question of why good work on construction sites so often starts with a sense of uncertainty. I'm Nick from Scanflow Solutions, and I remember many construction sites and conversations where I sensed just how much skill goes into this craft. Landscape contractors bring experience, intuition, and a genuine feel for materials, terrain, and space. They know exactly what they're doing, and yet there are those moments when you pause, assess, and improvise, not because of a lack of skill, but because of a lack of information. The problem often isn't with the craft itself. It arises between the steps of the process, between what's there, what's planned, what the client envisions, and what ultimately needs to be built. This is exactly where the idea of a digital workflow begins. Imagine a modern landscape contractor with a toolbox made not just of metal, but of data, clarity, and security. A toolbox that accompanies him from the initial survey to the finished garden, not as a replacement, but as an enhancement to his skills. After all, a scanner alone doesn't transform a job site. A GNSS antenna alone doesn't create a workflow, and even excavator guidance remains just a tool if it stands on its own. Only when everything comes together does a seamless process emerge that truly works in the field. That's exactly what the FJD Trion ecosystem is. A landscape contractor sees more than others. When the client sees only a flat area, the contractor recognizes elevations, slopes, waterways, and paths. That's why it all starts with a simple question: what is really there? The FJD Trion scanner brings clarity to this. The construction site is captured point by point, and the digital representation is created from reality. Suddenly, what was previously often only estimated becomes visible. This point cloud is more than just data. It's the foundation for better decisions. Planning becomes more tangible, calculations more reliable, and problems are identified early on. But the journey doesn't end here. Within the ecosystem, the data remains dynamic and continues to evolve. In industry software like Dataflow, this evolves into a plan. Lines, areas, and elevations form a foundation that not only works on the screen, but must also hold up in the real world later on. A pivotal moment is when the customer understands. On the iPad, the plan becomes an experience. The customer gets a sense on how their garden could look. It's no longer just about measurements, it's about trust. Together, decisions are made on base that both parties can see and understand. Then, everything returns to the job site. This is where GNSS comes into play. GNSS anchors the data in the real world. Using the rover pole, the landscape contractor brings the plan back to the site. Points appear where they belong, lines become visible, and elevations can be verified. Even the invisible elements find their place. Pipes, drainage systems, and cables are documented and remain traceable for the future. Then comes the moment when everything combines together. Excavator guidance feeds the plan directly into the machine. The operator works more precisely, safely, and efficiently, supported by data, but guided by experience. Because technology does not replace craftsmanship, it makes it stronger. In the FG Dynamics Trion ecosystem, every step is seamlessly integrated. From the initial scan to the finished landscape, a continuous workflow is created without any loss of information. In the end, you don't see data, you see a garden, paths that feel natural, elevations that are just right, spaces that simply work. But that's not where the digital toolkit ends. What if the garden retained its digital origins? What if the data generated during planning and construction could continue to be used afterward? Then the FG Dynamics robotic lawnmower isn't simply placed in a finished garden. It enters a garden it already knows. It knows the areas, boundaries, and maintenance zones. It picks up right where the landscape contractor left off. In this way, the workflow becomes not just a path to completion, but a companion for the future. The robotic lawnmower stays in the garden, quiet, reliable, and a natural part of the landscape. It maintains the space that was created through planning, craftsmanship, and collaboration. And perhaps that is exactly why it becomes more than just a piece of equipment. It becomes a reminder of a successful process, of clear decisions, of strong collaboration. Because in the end, it's not technology that wins. In the end, it's craftsmanship, the people and the places that result from it that win. Built with experience, guided by data, maintained for the future. Let's open the digital toolbox together.